What's going on, everyone? This is DC Picks. I'm going to give you my predictions and breakdown for UFC Vegas 95. We have Sergei Spivak taking on Marcin Tybura, which is a fantastic main event. I love heavyweight main events, especially to this caliber, if you can't tell by my sarcasm. Sorry if I sound a bit raspy, a bit nasally today. I still am sick. It's been I don't know what I've got, but it's definitely taken a toll on me. But hopefully we can get through this video and get to the breakdowns and predictions. Before we begin, let's quickly go over a recap over last week. So we hit 8 out of 13 predictions. It was not too bad. It was a very heavy favorite card. I think only one dog came through, and I picked quite a few dogs there. And there's a lot of close split decisions that just didn't go our way. But nonetheless, our safety parlay hit once again. That's 7 out of 8 safety parlays hit since its inauguration, and it was a pretty smooth sailing for that parlay. The Per Grande leg was easy. Azmat was piecing him up, and there was gas tank issues, I will admit that, and I did say that in my prediction. But overall, he handled opponent Menafield quite easily, and then Umar, he got a 50-45 scorecard. Even though it was a close fight, he did win it quite convincingly and cleanly. Then for our straights and props, we hit 3 out of the 4. I mean, the Dumas one, Dumas is just silly. But the other 3 were pretty clear and easy. Fernandez just broke the leg of Yaya. Alvarez and Brenner was close to going the distance, but Alvarez just put on a hell of a performance, very composed, and just beat down Brenner all through the whole fight. And then the Azmat KO, Menafield took a lot more shots than I thought he would, but eventually Azmat found that KO and got us that one. And then the nibbles weren't really close, it is what it is. The nibbles aren't supposed to really hit. They're just there for large plus money. So yeah, overall, I'm very happy. Plus money, not plus money. We made a profit once again because, like I said, if I hit my safety parlay, I make quite a large profit on the card, and I'll put them up right here and here. And yeah, so I think we should just go on to the first breakdown of the card, which is a fantastic fight. We have Stephanie Luciano taking on Talita Alencar. And, this is a rematch if you haven't seen the first fight. The first fight was on the Contender Series, and it was definitely a war of attrition for both fighters. So Alencar, she is a grappler, a wrestler at heart, and she is pretty good at doing so. She got successful takedowns on Riani de Santos. In the first fight against Luciano, she got those takedowns as well. And she's good at doing so. Her control isn't the best, I will say that. And what I mean by that is, even if she gets her opponents down, they are able to get back up, as seen in the first Luciano fight. But she is capable of shooting takedowns. She doesn't just, clinch and then try and take down. She does shoot single doubles in the middle of the cage and tries to be successful with that. Now, one negative of her is she has a bad gas tank, and you saw it in both her recent fights. I'm talking about both her recent fights because she's only got 5 fights. I'm not going to talk about the fights that she did many years ago. I'm going to talk about the recent ones. In the Luciano fight, gassed hard, and that's what gave Luciano a chance to finish her in the 3rd round, and actually gave Luciano that 10-8 round in the 3rd. In the Riani de Santos fight, gassed bad. But Riani de Santos, as we've seen in a other fight as well that she's had since then, is a very low fight IQ fighter. And Alencar was lucky that Riani de Santos didn't pick up on that and put the pressure on her, because she gassed as well in that fight, which is a massive concern because that's 2 fights in a row now that she hasn't been able to hold a full 15 minutes together. Now for Luciano, she hasn't fought since their first fight on the Contender Series, and in that fight you could see she was definitely the better striker of the 2. She is a composed striker and she has beautiful striking technique. She's still young, only 24 years old, so you can definitely see improvements compared to the 33 years of age of Alencar. It's a tough fight to predict because you just don't know. Has Luciano improved her takedown defense? Has Alencar improved her gas tank? I'm going to go with no in terms of Alencar improving her gas tank because she is 33 years old. And, improvements are lesser to be made at that age. Whereas I do think at 24 years old, Luciano has probably gone back to the drawing board. Hopefully improved her takedown defense. And if it's standing, she's going to be able to piece up Alencar. Riani de Santos was able to piece up Alencar, but Riani de Santos didn't put enough pressure or enough output on that fight to actually win that fight convincingly, even though some people did say it was a robbery. So yeah, I do think Luciano, even though she might get taken down, will be able to keep it on the feet for the majority of the fight. Piece up Alencar, and I do think she actually gets that finish that she was longing for in the first fight. I think she finds a finish later in the fight and puts the rivalry to rest. So I like Luciano to find a finish in rounds 2 or 3 by TKO. Next up for UFC Vegas 95, we have Youssef Zalal taking on Jarno Errens, which should be an exciting fight because we do have 2 exciting prospects on the rise You know, Youssef Zalal coming back into the UFC, putting a dominating performance against Billy Q, and Jarno Errens coming for a couple losses, had a very dominating victory over Nguyen. So both are on the uprise here, and it's going to be exciting to see who comes out on top in this one. We'll start with Jarno Errens. He's a very come forward, aggressive Dutch kickboxing, a kickboxer basically. Yeah. You saw that in the Choi fight, in the Stephen Nguyen fight. He just comes forward, throws combinations, and has a lot of power with his combinations as well. He was able to hurt people like Stephen Nguyen, and also he dropped Choi in that fight, even though he lost it. He has a lot of heart as well, you know. He got hurt in the Choi fight himself, and then was always in that fight. And, you know, it was scary for backing Choi there because, you know, Errens was trying to put his lights out and even dropped and hurt Choi. In the Nguyen fight, you know, it was a back and forth war, but Errens definitely came out on top in that victory, having the high output, just having the more damaging shots in that fight, and definitely had the better combinations out of the two. Now, for him, he can be wrestled, which is definitely a concern in this fight. You saw Gomez look like a D1 wrestler against him, and you also saw Choi wrestle him. And the important thing to note about those fights is it wasn't the takedown defense, it was the grappling that was a real concern. He just didn't know how to get off his back, and you know, against better grapplers as well. There's Gomez and Choi aren't known to be grapplers, but against better ones or more proficient ones, it will be a concerning factor for him. Now, for Youssef Zalal, on his comeback fight, he showed that he had the mixed bag. He had beautiful striking, he had grappling, he had these unique trips. He wasn't just shooting traditional takedowns, he was doing these trips that just caught Billy Q off guard, and from there he was able to out-grapple Billy Q, which is a hard thing to do because Quarantilla is a very scrambly fighter and it's hard to keep him on the floor, but Zalal was able to do so. His striking and cardio is also, you know, good. Even in his first in the UFC, that fight against Damon Blackshear, he was getting out-wrestled himself. But in that third round, he came back and he nearly finished Blackshear to get a 10-8 round and save himself a draw in that fight. So you know he can go 3 hard rounds. I do think he's probably the worst striker out of the two. Not worse, just he has the less damaging shots of the two. Technical-wise or technique-wise, I think they're pretty equal. But I definitely do think Errens throws a bit more malice, and the judges will definitely be able to see that compared to the two. I also do think that Zalal doesn't have the best wrestling in terms of traditional takedowns. Like I said, in that Billy Q fight, he used a lot of trips and you know, clinch takedowns rather than shooting a single double leg. When he did try to do that, definitely in his past stint in the UFC against Choi, he was unsuccessful in doing so, and Choi's not the best defensive wrestler, so it is a little bit of a concern. Now, in saying that, I do think Zalal wins this at a medium confidence, and the reason for that is I think the striking is competitive. I do think both can have their way. But I think the ground game is just not there for Errens, and I think Zalal will be able to exploit that and have a sleuth of success on the ground. So I do like Zalal to get those trip takedowns, maybe even get the traditional takedowns, and just dominate Errens on the floor. So give me Zalal, give me him by submission, and I like him to get a submission in rounds 1 or 2. Next up for UFC Vegas 95, we have Jhonata Diniz taking on Karl Williams, which is a clash of styles, if I've ever seen one. You know, Diniz is a come-forward kickboxer, and Williams is a grappler. Not really a grappler, a wrestler. I wouldn't say a grappler, but we'll get to that in a second. So for Diniz, like I said, he's a come-forward kickboxer. And I say kickboxer, not really kick, more boxer. He doesn't really throw that many kicks. He's a bit slow when he does so. But I would say his best asset definitely is that pressure that he puts on to his opponents. Whenever it's on the feet, he's coming forward, he's trying to knock the opponent's head off. And, you know, I think Austin Lane was definitely one to see that in his last fight. Now, in saying that fight against Austin Lane, he made Lane look like a D1 wrestler and Damian Maia on the ground. He has no grappling and he does not know how to get back up onto his feet. He literally had to rely getting to the second round to be able to have success in that fight because Lane just dominated him on the floor in the first round, and Diniz just didn't know what to do. Now that's scary in this fight because Williams is a very good wrestler, and you know, you saw it in the Tafa fight, you saw it in the Sherman fight, you saw it in the Bresky fight. He's not scared to make it a boring fight. And what I said prior to this, like a couple of minutes ago or seconds ago, however long it's been, is that he's a wrestler, he is not a grappler. He doesn't really know what to do on the ground. He just kind of lays in his opponents, fires off a few shots, you know, enough to make the referee not stand them back up. And yeah, he just doesn't get a lot of damage on his feet on the ground. So, you know, putting him by decision is probably a good bet here because he's just not very good on the ground, no matter where the position is for him. And he won't go to full mount or anything like that. He'd rather just stay on 3/4 mount or even in guard and just lay, you know, a few punches here and there to win the round. Now, if you've looked at his fights, when it gets to the third round, it is very scary. He slows down tremendously and his takedowns are very, very, very sloppy. if Diniz can survive to that round, which I do think he can because Williams is not much of a finisher, it is going to be scary seeing Williams try and take Diniz down because, like I said, Diniz will try and knock your head off no matter, no matter where the fight. Not where the fight is, but whenever the fight is on the feet, he will try and find that finish. In saying that, we've never seen Diniz over the 1.5 round mark. That was the latest the fight has gone for him in that Austin Lane fight. So it would be a concern for himself seeing him into the 3rd round. But I would be more concerned for Williams than Diniz because, like I said, Williams slows down. Even if he's dominating fights, Tafa fight, Sherman fight, he was dominating those fights, but he was still tied in that 3rd round. I am going to pick Williams. I am going to pick him by decision. I just think Diniz just is too bad on the ground, if I'm going to put it lightly. But I am definitely concerned for him in that 3rd round. I do think Diniz is going to have a chance to win this fight by KO. However, I am going to pick Williams. Give me Williams by decision. Next up, we have Karol Rosa taking on Pannie Kianzad. And I feel like it's been a while since we've seen these two, especially Kianzad, but it's actually not. They fought quite recently. But anyway, we'll get to the breakdown of Karol Rosa. So she is a very, very underrated fighter. And if people watch back the Aldana fight, I actually picked Karol Rosa in that fight. That was a very close decision. And it was something that, it was just unfortunate that Karol Rosa couldn't keep the 3-round pace that she had in the 1st round. She absolutely obliterated Irene Aldana's leg in that fight. And she was piecing up on the feet as well in the 1st round. And, some people might have thought that Karol Rosa won that fight, especially how damaging it was for Irene Aldana with the leg kicks. But in saying that, she is a very good kickboxer. She's also a good grappling as well. You saw in the Lena Landsberg fight, she can grapple, she can wrestle, and she can clinch. She has a full kit to her name, and it's a shame because sometimes she has these low output, lethargic performances, which is a concern because you can never be too confident in her game plan or in her mindset for a fight. Now for Pannie Kianzad, if my camera stops moving, back up. She is okay everywhere. I don't think she's necessarily good anywhere, but if she can find or exploit her opponents in a weakness, she will do so. In the Davis fight, she used her boxing, and in the Landsberg fight, she used her wrestling. So she will choose a path of least resistance, but I just don't necessarily think she shines anywhere. She doesn't have, a magical boxing or kickboxing, and her wrestling and grappling is not the best either. Now, a major flaw of hers is her defensive wrestling and defensive grappling. You saw Kianzad just completely exploit that. And the fight I think is even worse than that is the Ketlin Vieira fight. She just had no answer. She could not get back up to her feet. So I do think if Rosa gets this grappling game, wrestling game going, she will be able to dominate Kianzad in that department. She also has no power, which is a concern because, she can't really separate herself. I definitely think Rosa has the more power in this fight. And I definitely think she has the more well-rounded skill set in this fight. So if Rosa does go to the grappling, the wrestling, and just mixes up the fight, I think she can win this fight quite dominantly. But it's just a question of if she does that, because like I said, she is a bit of a loose cannon in terms of her mental and her game planning. So, you always have to put a question mark next to that, and you can never really be too highly confident on her winning this fight. However, in saying that, I do think she wins this fight. I think in the striking, it's competitive, but I do think she has the more powerful striking. In the clinch, I think she has a better clinch than Kianzad. I definitely, by far, think she has a better grappling or wrestling pedigree than Kianzad. So I like Rosa to find we'll say Rosa by submission or decision. We won't say by finish here because, Kianzad is tough, but yeah, I do like Rosa here. Give me her by submission or decision. Next up for UFC Vegas 95, we have Barlow taking on Nikolay Veretennikov. And this is Veretenikov's debut in the UFC. I think he fought in the Contender Series quite a while ago against Michael Morales, but he's fought his way back in the regional promotions and he's having his debut fight here in the Apex. So we'll start off with him. He is a Sambo fighter who predominantly strikes, but he can wrestle. He loves his hooks, but he definitely prioritizes the clinch, and he loves the clinch knees and the clinch elbows when he can get his opponents to there. He is powerful. He even hurt Michael Morales in that Contender Series fight, and 9 out of his 12 wins are by KO. So you definitely have to be worried about Barlow getting cracked here because he does possess that power. Now, there's a few concerns for him. First one, against that Anthony Ivy fight, they said he was 34 years old. and that was like 3 years ago. So I don't know who's lying here, what's happening with his age, but there is a potential for him to be at the age of 37, 38. Just want to put it out there. He also slows down at about the halfway mark of fights. You see that in the Michael Morales fight. You definitely saw it in the Stephen Jones fight. He does have gas tank issues. Now, he fights through it, don't get me wrong. He doesn't like just completely give up. But he slows down and he's definitely much more hittable. He also can be taken down himself. Stephen Jones was able to take him down. Michael Morales was able to take him down. And in those positions, he does get back to his feet, but it takes him a while. He does lose a significant amount of minutes in the fight being taken down and staying on his back. Now, for Danny Barlow, he is a sniper, and that's how I like to classify him. He's known as left-handed god, and he does use that left hand. He just snipes his opponents with his boxing. And he also, he's not just a boxer. He uses calf kicks. You saw that in the Quinlan fight. He uses a lot of calf kicks to measure his opponents and fire off that left hand. He has a lot of composure as well in his fights, and he can reach the third round. In the Quinlan fight, he found that finish in the third round. In the Dustin DePuma fight, he survived the 3 rounds and definitely showed his composure. Now, for him, there is one major concern, and that is his ground game. You watch that Dustin DePuma fight, and he can be taken down, and on the ground, he is like a fish out of water. Now, I know that was a few years ago, and I'm sure he's definitely improved in that department, but it is something to note because Veretennikov can land takedowns. And, you don't want to see having a big bet on Barlow and seeing him on his back and not knowing what to do against a wrestler in Veretennikov or someone who possesses wrestling in Veretennikov. Now, in saying that, Veretennikov wrestling, I don't think is going to do him well here because he does slow down just in the striking. And I think, everyone knows if you wrestle, it's definitely a harder trait to keep your stamina up than it is in kickboxing. And I think Veretennikov, if he does decide to wrestle Barlow, will only have success for the first round, maybe the first round and a half. But after that, I think Barlow is going to be able to land the better shots on the feet and hurt Veretennikov. We have seen Veretennikov hurt before as well. So, in saying that, I think it is a medium confidence pick for Barlow here. I like him to find the KO. I just think he has the composure. If he gets taken down, he'll be able to, ride out the round or just have the better cardio to reach the second, third round and find his left hand. On the feet, I do think it's, pretty one-sided in terms of Barlow. I did say, Veretennikov has power and he has these hooks and clinch, but we've seen Barlow's a very powerful fighter, very powerful boxer, and he will be able to land the harder and more precise shots of the two. So give me Barlow, give me him to get a KO in rounds 2 or 3. Next up, we have Toshiomi Kazama taking on Charalampos Grigoriou. And it should be a fun fight, but I'm just not very impressed that these fighters are, neither are the best fighter. I'll just put it lightly. We'll go with Kazama. So, guys, I'm not really good. I don't really know what he's good at. I would say his grappling's okay, but he just doesn't know how to get the fight to the ground. He doesn't have wrestling. He has trips, and trips are very hard to do in the UFC and in MMA in general because fighters just know how to scramble out of them. But I would say his best asset is the grappling. He's not a good striker at all. He's just very wild with his striking. He doesn't know how to reach his opponents, and it's like he's hitting air most of the time. And he has no striking defense whatsoever. He's just not the best fighter, if I want to put it kindly or lightly. I'm sorry to say so. Yeah, for Grigoriou, at least I can say he has good wrestling. In that Alencar fight, he used his wrestling before he got gassed out. And, even in the Cameron Smotherman fight, he had striking and he knocked him out cleanly. So he does possess power. And for that, I just have to pick Grigoriou here. I'm not impressed by either fighter. I'm going to keep this breakdown very short because I just don't know where I can, analytically, situate these fighters. But I just don't know what Kazama's going to be able to do to Grigoriou. Is he going to be able to land those takedowns? I don't really think so. And in the grappling, his grappling's not, world class or anything like that. So I think Grigoriou, if he can just stay composed, just fire off the boxing combinations, I think he's going to have a field day here. So this actually is going to be a high confidence pick on Grigoriou. I just don't rate Kazama at all. Even though I don't rate Grigoriou that much, I just think he's better than Kazama, and that's what it comes down to. He's just better. He has the more well-rounded skill set. He gassed out in the Angelica fight, but Angelica is a veteran. He has his own skill set that's hard to handle, and I think Angelica would wipe Kazama clean. So I like Grigoriou. Give me him by KO. Next up, we have Allan Nascimento taking on Filho. And this is like a mirror matchup in my personal opinion. I think both shine where the other one shines and both have similar skill sets. So we'll go for Nascimento, sorry. You know, he says he's 5'8" here compared to 5'7", but trust me, he's a big fighter for this division. You can see it takes a lot for him to cut the weight, but he always has the size advantage over his opponents. He has decent striking and kicks. You know, you saw that in the Hadley fight, you saw that in the Tugir Ulanbekov fight. He has beautiful body kicks, and his boxing is not too bad either for being predominantly a grappler. He also has good takedowns and jiu-jitsu. You know, he can shoot he can shoot single, double legs. He can also get the trips. And in the Hernandez fight, he just completely ragdolled him and got that quick submission victory. I will say he can be grappled himself. You know, Hadley in the third round was able to get Nascimento down and also just have a success keeping him there. Tugir was also able to get Nascimento down, but Tugir is a very good wrestler, so you kind of can't give him too much slack for that one. Now, for Zalal Filho, he, like I said, is the exact replica of Nascimento. He has good boxing, good kicks, and he shines in the wrestling and the grappling. Now, what separates him from Nascimento, which I think is why I'm going to pick Nascimento here, is he can be hurt. You saw Berez rip the body of Filho and hurt him there, and if it wasn't for Berez having very low fight IQ, probably would have finished Filho in that one. Also, a massive concern here is he lays on his back too much. You saw in the Escavera fight, I think that's how pronounced it, in the Dana White Contender Series, he laid on his back and the referee had to stand them up because Filho was like wanting him to go into his guard. Now, I just think that's a very good visual, especially when you have a tight fight here, which might go to the judges' scorecards. The judges will always preference the fighter that's standing up compared to the fighter that's laying on his back and looks like he wants to quit the fight. So for that, I'm going to pick Nascimento here. I think he is going to have the better visuals. I think he's going to be the bigger fighter. I think on the feet, it's very close. But on the ground, you know, I think Nascimento will fight for those top positions, whereas Filho will maybe lay on his back and work from bottom. And I just think the visuals will be there for Nascimento. So yeah, I like Nascimento. Give me Nascimento to win this one by KO or decision. Not submission, because I don't think he's going to be able to submit Filho. But I do like the KO here possibility, because we have seen Filho hurt. So KO or decision. Next up, we have Jarno Santos taking on Chelsea Chandler. And whenever I talk about Chelsea Chandler, I just think of that meme of her running around the cage. I'm trying to avoid the strikes. But anyway, we'll start off with Santos. So as she's, become a mother and, married Thiago Santos and just, none of those things. Just as she's grown older, she's definitely turned more into a clinch fighter. Very similar to Jai Herbert in his last fight. But, yeah. She's definitely a clinch fighter, and she has success with it. You saw in the Holly Holm fight, in the Karol Rosa fight, she likes to clinch her opponents up against the cage and just throw some knees, just keep them there and win minutes doing that. She has okay striking, but it's not the best. She likes to kick on the outside, but there definitely has no power behind them or anything like that. It's more so the clinch game that she uses in her fights. However, she does slow down in that Karol Rosa fight. Even though it was a low output fight and she was just using the clinch, she does slow down, so she's unable to keep that game plan up for 3 rounds. She also can be taken down and controlled badly. In the Holly Holm fight, she's dominated her on the ground. And Holly Holm's a good fighter, she's always been in the top of the division. But still, to get controlled and dominated by a kickboxer in Holly Holm is not something that you want to see. She also dives into exchanges. It's like the swimming man analogy. She just swims into her punches. And, it's not something that you want to see. Now, for Chelsea Chandler, I don't think she's the best fighter ever. I don't think she's actually good, really, at all. But she is a good grappler in... That contradicts myself, but she is a grappler, and she uses her size to do so. In the Stolyarenko fight, she just got top mount and just dominated from there. In the Josiane Nunes fight, she was able to grapple her and take her down. She has these body lock takedowns, and like I said, she uses her size to get those takedowns, which is definitely something that you have to watch out for in this fight, because I did say Santos gets dominated in the wrestling. Now, I do think she's probably the worst striker out of the two, but I don't think it's that much of a margin. Be honest, I don't think Santos is the best striker. I just think that she relies on that clinch, like I said. So you shouldn't really worry about it too much on the feet. Her striking defense isn't the best, but like I said, don't worry about it too much because Santos is not the best striker. Now, where do I position this fight? I do have to side with Chandler here. I think she is the younger fighter in her career. I think she's going to be able to use her size, get Santos down to the ground, and just dominate her with her size and with her grappling. I just think it's that simple to break down. I mean, do you think Santos is going to be able to stop the takedowns for 3 rounds? No. And do you think on the feet she's going to separate herself from Chandler that much? Probably not. So I like Chandler here. I like Chandler to just dominate in the ground. I actually think she can pull off the submission victory. So I do like Chandler to get the submission or decision victory here. Next up, we have Damon Jackson taking on Chepe Mariscal. And I've seen a lot of people saying Mariscal's a lock here, but I really think this is a difficult matchup to him. And we'll get to that in a second. So we'll start off with Jackson. He is a very, very, very good grappler in terms of control. When he gets his takedowns, he keeps his opponents there. And you can just watch the tape. The Billy Q fight, the Hernandez fight. When he gets those takedowns and he gets the back of his opponents, he keeps them there. And he wins rounds doing so. He also has decent striking. You know, it's not the worst. Sabatini, he knocked him out with that front kick, I believe. So he's not, you know, horrible in the striking. He's not just a grappler. He can stand and bang for a portion of time, but he does want to get the fight to the ground if he can. In saying that, he's hittable. You know, his chin's not the best. He has 4 out of 6 of his losses being by KO, and you know his striking defense you've seen is not where it needs to be if he wants to stand for large portions of time. He also does slow down sometimes, but when he does slow down, he slows down dramatically. You see in that Billy Q fight, he's just like a walking punching bag. His optics are absolutely horrible, and he just doesn't know what to do, and he's up against the cage, and his opponents can just tee off on him. But I do say sometimes, because in other fights he has a 3-round gas tank, so it's just weird to see. This is a short notice fight, so it is something important to point out here. But yeah, his gas tank is an issue sometimes. Now for Chepe, he is just a dog, and he's a dog that provides pressure. You know, in the Charrier fight, was he the more technical fighter of the two? No, but he just outdogged him. You know, he puts on that pressure, and he will give himself every chance to win that fight. That Trevor Peake fight, one of the funnest fights of the year to watch. It wasn't the most technical fight, but both scrapped it out. And you know, Chepe came out on top because he was a bit more of the technical fighter, and you know, was able to land the better shots there. He is hittable. You know, Trevor Peake was able to land some shots in him, and you know, that's a concern when Trevor Peake is able to land shots in you, because Peake is not the most technical fighter of the two. He throws those, you know, hammer hooks and whatnot. But yeah, and he also can be taken down, which is a concern in this fight, and which is why I said this fight is definitely a hard fight for Mariscal, and why I don't think he's a lock, like by any means. Charrier was able to take down Mariscal, and Charrier is not that much of a wrestler, and you know, he was able to get Mariscal down, but like I said, Mariscal's a dog. He was able to get himself up to the feet and win and scrap and also scramble on those bottom positions. Now, I am going to pick Mariscal here because I do think if it goes into a wrestling war, he's going to have the better gas tank out of the two. He's going to be able to get up to his feet. You know, sometimes, like I said, Jackson does have very good control, but I do think Mariscal has good defensive wrestling and good defensive grappling. And on the feet, I just think Mariscal is going to have the higher output. He's going to dog walk Jackson, and I just think he's going to find that KO blow in the 2nd or 3rd round. You know, this comes to a war of attrition, and who are you going to back here? Oh, I'm going to back Mariscal, you know, 8 times out of 10, because I just think we've seen it. He's proven it. Whereas Jackson, when the fight comes hard, he can give up on himself, and he can get tired and exploit it. So I like Mariscal here. Give me Mariscal by KO in rounds 2 or 3. Next up for the co-main event, we have Cruz Gutierrez taking on Javid Basharat, and Basharat's coming off his first defeat of his career, so it should be interesting to see how he rebounds off this one. So we'll start off with him. He is good everywhere, okay? He's got beautiful striking. You saw it in the Henry fight, the Zahabi fight, and he also has, you know, beautiful wrestling, just like his brother. He was able to take down past opponents like Mendonça, you know, Tony Gravely. He was able to take them down, so he has a mixed bag of skills. Now, in saying that, he's not the most dangerous fighter. He doesn't really put a stamp on fights, and that's what lost him his last fight against Zahabi. He cannot put stamps on fights, and he just doesn't have a lot of power or finishing instinct in his tool bag, which, you know, maybe hopefully he's worked on that. But it is something to be of concern. What's also of concern is he doesn't wrestle as much as he should. You know, the Zahabi fight, he probably should have wrestled him more, but he chose to strike with Zahabi, and that's what lost him the decision there, because Zahabi was landing the more impactful shots of the two. So it is a concern that he doesn't mix up the wrestling as much as he should, especially in this fight, which I'll get to. So, Gutierrez is definitely the better striker of the two, I think. He lands these beautiful leg kicks, you know, against Alatang Haley. He landed those beautiful leg kicks, and he's just known to have a very crisp striking, and he's very technical in doing so. His footwork's off the charts. He has very good defensive striking, and he finds openings on his opponents that not many others can do. Now, a major weakness of his is his wrestling defense and his grappling. Song Yadong, as soon as he took him down and realized he can keep him there, he just did so for the rest of the fight. He couldn't get back up to his feet. Even the Dinar Bakary fight, Dinar Bakary had success with keeping Gutierrez on the floor and dominating him in the wrestling. So I do think Basharat, if he chooses to go to the wrestling, will be able to dominate Gutierrez. Gutierrez is 33. There's not much room for error in terms of him improving himself. And Basharat's 28. He's constantly improving, and he was undefeated, and it's hard to be undefeated. Especially having a few fights in the UFC. So there is concern. There is a concern that if Basharat decides to strike with Gutierrez, he can be outstruck. His legs can be chopped up. But I do think he will be able to, and learn his lesson from last fight, mix up the wrestling more so than what he did. And if he does so, I think he's going to easily dominate Gutierrez on the ground. So I do like Basharat here. I am going to put it at a medium confidence because I am concerned about the striking, between the two and the damaging output of Gutierrez. I definitely think Gutierrez will have the more damaging shots of the two. But I still think he will learn from his lessons, take down Gutierrez, and dominate him from there because he does have good top control. So I like Basharat. Give me Basharat by decision. And for the main event, oh my god, this main event is absolutely amazing. We have Sergei Spivak taking on Marcin Tybura. Heavyweight main event, low level heavyweight main event. What more could you ask for? In the Apex as well? This doesn't cure my sickness, I don't know what will. Alright, we'll start off with Tybura. He is just a grinder of a fighter, he doesn't excel anywhere, he doesn't try and force a fight anywhere. He just kind of outwits his opponents, pieces them up on the feet with the boxing when his opponents slow down. That's what he does, he just grinds, he has decent striking, you saw in the Ivanov fight, and he also has his own wrestling, when he has to wrestle, he will. I don't think he will in this fight, but against Tuivasa, he chose to wrestle because he knew not to strike with him, and he dominated him and finished him. So he is, a well-rounded fighter in terms of he knows, a piece of each skill, but he doesn't just shine in any department, if that makes sense. He is hittable, but he's not like the worst defensive striker you've ever seen. And he can be dominated on the ground. You saw Romanov get that 10-8 from him on the first, or like close to a 10-8 for him when they fought in the first round. And even Volkov was able to get him down and kind of win a large portion of the fight when on the ground. But admittedly, it is hard to get him down. You don't see a lot of fighters get him down, even though he hasn't really fought that many wrestlers, to be fair. Now for Spivak, he's known for his wrestling and grappling. He uses those body lock takedowns like Augusto Sakai, Derek Lewis, and he gets it down. And when he does, he puts work on his opponents. He doesn't just sit there and lie there. He tries to ground and pound his opponents and get them out of there. He has okay striking. He has a jab. I definitely think he's the worst striker out of the two here. What I don't like about him is that he is very sloppy in his exchanges. He runs fed first, like that swimming analogy that I said before. He definitely does do that, and I definitely do think Tybura will be the more polished striker out of the two. Now the question comes down to, will Spivak be able to get the takedowns on Tybura, and will he be able to survive 5 rounds? There's a lot of questions, and honestly, I don't know the answer. I don't really know how this fight will go. For a pick's sake, I am going to pick Spivak because I just think he has a more secure route to victory. I think if he lands those takedowns, he'll be able to dominate Tybura because, heavyweights just don't get back up to their feet once they've been taken down. So yeah, I do think Spivak, if he gets those takedowns, will be able to secure minutes and hopefully get Tybura out of there before we have to watch a 5-round slop fest. But, the margins are very thin in this fight, so I wouldn't go be, confident on any side or whatnot. I am going to pick Spivak. I like him to get the KO or submission in the first 3 rounds. And that wraps up the main event. I'm sorry, guys. It's a short video. As you can tell, my energy is not all here. I'm trying not to lose my voice too much as well. I lost it recently, and I'm just getting it back now. But, yeah, we've got a bit of a snooze over of an event this week. But we've got UFC 305 coming up the week after, which I'm going to, which I'm super excited for. I'm happy I got sick this week rather than next week. So, yeah, other than that, please, guys, do your own tape. Research your own fights. Let me know what you think about my predictions. And also, let me know, I asked last week for my safety parlay, which we've hit, if you didn't know, if you didn't see the start of the video, 7 out of 8 times. Let me know if you want to do a $10,000 to $10,000 challenge. I've seen a lot of people do that in other sports. I've never seen it in the UFC, and I'm more than willing to do that. If I've hit 7 out of 8 safety parlays, I'm sure we can hit that. I just need enough support, I need at least like 10 people saying so. Otherwise, it's just not worth it. But yeah, other than that, please leave a like, subscribe. I want to reach that 1,000 subscriber mark so I can start doing some fighter live companion streams on Sundays when we watch the fights all together. I think that would be a really fun thing to do. And yeah, other than that, keep an eye out for the best bets that will come out later this week. And enjoy your week. I'll catch you later. Ciao.